All right, well, I think we have everybody in the room here getting situated and ready. How are we looking online? Do we have, Anna Marie, do we have the online connection up?
We do. Hear you loud and clear.
Great. So thank you to everybody who joined us in the room here. Thank you to everybody who has joined us online tonight to learn about our Advancing Lincoln Avenue project. So we're excited to have so many people in the room and online. My name is Justin Schmitz, and I'm the Director of Public Works and Mobility for the City of Lone Tree. And we're very excited to be here for our third public meeting for the Advancing Lincoln Avenue project here at the wonderful Arts Center in Lone Tree. On November 9th, 2021, we were all here, or most of us were here, for the first public meeting. That's 18 months ago. And the team has been doing a great job working for the last 18 months to develop everything that you're going to see tonight. And I want to highlight that we also received a lot of comments at both our public meetings, on our website, through lots of forums, and we've done our very best to include all of those comments into everything you're going to see tonight in our recommendations. The City of Lone Tree has a long and proud history of continuing to work with our local, our state, and our federal partners to deliver and build major transportation infrastructure projects in the City of Lone Tree. And we're very excited tonight because all the work that is happening on this Advancing Lincoln Avenue is going to allow us to continue that tradition at the Lincoln Avenue corridor. And with that, I'm very honored to introduce someone that everybody knows and respects, the Honorable Mayor of the City of Lone Tree. I'd like to have Mayor Jackie Millay please join us to kick us off here with some comments.
Thank you so much, Justin. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank the project team really for tremendous work that's been happening over the course of the last multiple years to get this off and running. I also want to introduce my Mayor Pro Tem, Win Shaw, and Councilmember Marissa Harmon, who's also here. And then we also have Commissioner Laura Thomas, who is here as well, and Commissioner Layton, who's going to be speaking in a moment as the chair of the Douglas County Commissioners. So we all, if you're here, you know how to get here. But Lone Tree has been blessed by really phenomenal transportation and phenomenal transportation infrastructure. That didn't happen by accident. You know, some of you have heard me speak about a civilization beginning at the Tigris and Euphrates River. Well, in Colorado, that's C-470 and I-25. And we know civilization didn't begin in Lone Tree, but what we do know is Lone Tree is the northern gateway into Douglas County. We know that a lot of great business, a lot of great living happens in our community, around our community, and adjacent to our community. And essential to access all of that is the Lincoln Interchange. Lone Tree is very proud of proactive response to planned growth. The Ridgegate Interchange was constructed before one resident or even a business was opened in the West Village in the city of Lone Tree. And as we look to the growth that is happening on the east side of our city, we must also recognize the tremendous growth that is happening in a very successful Douglas County. What we know for sure is that this interchange is going to serve many more folks living in Douglas County than they are going to be serving residents in the city of Lone Tree. It is going to be serving many more businesses in and around the city of Lone Tree and our surrounds than businesses just in the city of Lone Tree. And that's why you're going to see a team of people working very hard to get this project across the line. One of our great partners in many, if not all, of our significant transportation projects has been the Douglas County Commissioners. In fact, Commissioner Roger Partridge coined us as the North Gateway to Douglas County. We're proud of that moniker. And I'd like to invite up Commissioner, Chair of the Board of County Commissioners, Abe Layton, to make some remarks as well. Thank you, sir. Always appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Millay and Justin, and certainly to the entire Lone Tree City Council. We are in my district and right where I live here in Lone Tree. I think I'm one of the first county commissioners from Lone Tree, and I am the first, and I'm so incredibly proud of the work that Lone Tree has accomplished through its partners. We're a proud partner of Lone Tree, and we know how significant this particular project will be in terms of advancing Lincoln Avenue. And again, to Mayor Millay's point, it's not just for citizens locally here, it will be really significant for pedestrians, cyclists, for people commuting in and out of the area. I really like Roger Partridge's comment about what Lone Tree meant to him. For me, I've often said that Lone Tree is the beautiful welcome sign to Douglas County. And in many ways, I know Mayor Millay wears a lot lot of hats. One is Vice President of First Impressions. So I think when people come south, you encounter Lone Tree. And so really investing in this important corridor and in advancing Lincoln Avenue is a top priority for us. So we are pleased to be a partner. I'm even more pleased to see families and citizens here. I'm a father of 3 kids, so we're really glad you're here with your families. Please provide that input. And again, congratulations to the whole team. Thank you very much.
See if I can change these here. There we go. I might have forgot to push that before I left. So thank you so much for the comments, Mayor and Commissioner Layden. We're going to go through some quick meeting logistics. I think we're all familiar with these, but we do like to remind everyone. Tonight, we're going to be really focused, like we talked about, on providing a very good project update as well as leading to the preferred alternative that the team has developed. Throughout this process, you'll be able to ask questions. You can either raise your hand or please put your comments in the Q&A if you're online. If you're in person, later on, you can just raise your actual hand and we'll bring a microphone around and you can go ahead and provide us comments there. I do want to thank, we have a lot of the project team that is in the room tonight, so I just wanted to really quick compliment them on an amazing amount of work that has went into this, starting with Dan Rain, who you're going to hear from shortly, who is the project manager. We also have Ronnie Roybal and Jacob James, both on the engineering team and Public Works, who are here. Our Douglas County partners, and really the co-PMs of this project. It could not have happened without them. We have Art Griffith, who's over here, and in the back, Zeke Lynch. Thank you so much for all the effort and time that you have spent with us on this project. Wilson and Company, John Chester's going to come up, Mark DeVos, as the rest of the team here. And then we certainly have a whole lot of representatives, I'm not going to list all, from CDOT and our other partners that have really helped us through this process. Dr. Cog here tonight, Denver South. So thank you, everybody. This just shows everyone in the room how important this project is and how regionally significant this project is. So again, why are we here today? Well, we are here today to really focus on all the information that we have developed up to today. The technical exciting point is we are moving into the next step, which is called our NEPA process, right? That's exciting for all of us. Some of the public are like, what are you talking about? Well, really, that is the process that allows us to formalize and obtain funding moving forward. And tonight, we're going to talk about everything that's led up to here, and that will be our next step in that process as we move forward. There is a QR code you can see on the screen here, if you're online or on the screen. That QR code will let you put any comment in throughout the night. That'll allow us to look at them, and then during the Q&A session, we can provide responses to those as needed. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to the project manager for this project and the mobility manager for the city of Lone Tree, Dan Rain, who's going to take us from here.
Thank you, sir. Well, hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking this journey and helping us advance Lincoln Avenue. So just to recap, why are we here? Because we're growing. We're adding more people to Douglas County and to Lone Tree. We're adding a lot more jobs, and there's a lot more travel needs. And we have spent a lot of time putting in the essential core ingredients, but we have to continue to grow and evolve and challenge ourselves and our partners to make these connections. And not just for today and tomorrow, but for the future too. So it's great that we have very young stakeholders here tonight. So we saw them already using the QR code to fill out the survey. So if you all could do the same, that would be great. Thank you so much. But it is essential for our long-term survival as a city, as a community, to really make these investments now and provide travel options for everyone, whether you're living here or you're working here or you're just passing through. We're here to make Lincoln efficient for everyone. And that really goes to our purpose, because Lincoln, while it serves a very local need, serves a very significant regional need, tying together northern Douglas County and major business centers, employment centers, and folks living to the east and west of us. We really want to try to, while we're helping that regional need, we also really want to make sure that the local needs of Lone Tree are recognized now, but also in the future too. Because as Lone Tree grows, as Douglas County grows, we really need to be synchronized in these investments. And that means having core values. So our core values focus really on enhancing multimodal travel and connectivity. And I'm going to get back to that in 2 slides. We really want to improve the operations, not only along the corridor, but through the interchange as well. If you've seen the growth projections going towards 2050, it is substantial. We have a lot of people moving here. we stay ahead of that, we have a plan, and we implement it, we'll be fine. We need to address traffic conditions. We have issues now. What can we do in the short term? What are some early action items? And then what can we work together with our stakeholders to collaboratively build and construct, including our friends at CDOT that are here tonight talking about the Mobility Hub. So please visit with them before you leave today. But it takes partners. And that's the one thing that's fabulous about Lone Tree is we have so many fabulous partners, starting with the county, Denver South. And we're bigger than our boundaries because we also try to be that great partner back to them. So just want to take a moment to recognize Colorado Department of Transportation, Coventry Development, who's doing all our city center, the Denver Regional Council of Governments, DRCOG. They help us plot the future and keep us providing a healthy environment to grow in. The Federal Highway Administration oversees these types of projects. Meridian, right across on the north side of Lincoln Avenue, is a major employment center and has major travel needs as well. So we really have to continue working close with them and the other metro districts in the area. And of course, hey, if you're going to Parker, you're going to Lone Tree first to get there. So let's talk about an early action item, and I'm very excited to announce to you that we have submitted a funding application to DRCOG in partnership, once again, with Douglas County to implement multimodal improvements along and across Lincoln Avenue. And what we submitted, yes, a little early, we were not at a recommended preferred alternative at the time, but we knew how important it was to put that early. So recognizing that, we've partnered on that. We'll continue to focus on that as we refine a design and go through a NEPA process and continue to evaluate what those needs are, because micromobility continues to evolve. You know, everyone rode bikes and then these scooters came out, and now you can get on-demand transit for free right here in Lone Tree. So the way people move around will continue to evolve, and we will continue to evolve with that. But I want to take a moment to recognize everyone from the consultant from the Wilson team, because they worked with us on this application, and it is a challenging, competitive process. And I tell you, it felt like having a giant team with us. So thank you very much, Maureen from Wilson, John, Mark, and others to help us out. And DRCOG, we're keeping our fingers crossed that we're worthy of future funding. Now with that, I'd love to introduce to you Mr. John Chester. He's the project manager for Wilson. He's got a great haircut, but he's a great guy to work with, and he's super knowledgeable. And he's going to take us through kind of where we've been and what we're recommending. John?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Dan, for that nice introduction. I agree on the haircut wholeheartedly. What a great team to work with. I mean, the city and the county, the CDOT folks, FHWA, DRCOG, everybody, we're pretty fortunate to be working with this excellent team of folks who are all extremely committed to enhancing and improving Lone Tree and the transportation connections, both vehicular and non, throughout Lone Tree. It's the backbone of everything, and to be able to work with folks that are that committed to advancing these kind of projects, not just happy with where we are, right, but looking ahead, looking at the future, being prepared. It's pretty exciting, and tonight we get to talk about a long-term solution to the Lincoln Avenue corridor, as well as some phasing opportunities to do in between. And I'm just going to jump right into it. Remind everybody a little bit of how we got to where we are. We started with 19 alternatives, 13 of them that were looking at the I-25 Lincoln interchange specifically, and then another 6 at the Havana-Lincoln intersection. That's over 75 combined options if you start pairing everything up. And working with our technical committee of all the agencies that Dan just ran through over the last 15 to 18 months, getting into the weeds as much as we possibly can to make sure we're looking at every possible angle. We are down to one. We're going to show you the recommended alternative that we're advancing to our leadership committee, who will meet here in a few weeks and help us move into the next phase of the project. So Along with that always comes the no action alternative. You'll see that in our slides. You'll see it on the boards here in the room. The no action always carries forward. It's always something for us to compare what we're doing against if we did nothing, or what's currently planned. So the no action includes a couple current projects that are on the plan. But if we didn't do anything, what would happen? Versus what are the alternatives we're proposing and how are they improving conditions. So that'll carry forward all the way through. And then at the bottom of the screen here, we have evaluation criteria that we've been evaluating alternatives against for this period of time. So this is a diagram that we saw at the previous public meeting. That line was a little higher up on the funnel as far as where we were. Last time we met with everybody, we had gotten down to 3 alternatives that we were going to dive into a little more detail on. And we've done that. We have some information to present on the results of that today. And again, the goal is to recommend one alternative to move forward to the next phase of the project. So a really exciting time, a lot of effort by a lot of folks to get us here. And we're pretty excited about being here tonight. I'm going to pause here for a second and just make sure, Anna Marie, that everything is working online. We have a number of folks that are joining us through a Zoom call. That are online, listening, watching the videos. We got cameras all over the room. They're seeing the presentation. I just want to make sure those folks are still connected. Anna Marie, are we all good online?
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right. Well, let's just move on. So this is the first alternative of the 3 that we evaluated in great detail. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit to give us kind of a closer look. This alternative is called Alternative 1, and it has a B next to it. I'll explain what that is here in a second. This alternative really preserves the existing infrastructure of the I-25 interchange. That is huge from a constructability, implementation, and funding standpoint. Being able to enhance and improve for 2050 volumes and maintain some of the existing infrastructure is a huge bonus of this alternative. We are adding to it, though. And what this alternative adds to it is a new ramp coming off I-25 southbound that will fly over I-25 and enter the center of Lincoln Avenue, the farthest left lane, if you will, going eastbound. And the idea with this ramp is to carry an extremely high volume of traffic that we were seeing showing up in the traffic models. And that is folks wanting to go east of this project corridor. We have a high volume of folks that want to head towards Parker. They might not all make it there, but that's where they're headed, in that direction. And what we saw was by separating that movement from the local traffic, everybody gets to where they want to go a lot more efficiently. And so this ramp allows that to happen. It takes volume off of Lincoln through the interchange, puts it on its own ramp, and immediately you come in on the left and you can just cruise through. That allows the local folks that want to get to Havana or want to get to Zenith Meridian to do so with more efficiency because they're not competing with regional traffic. And then you notice Havana, what we've done is we have grade separated to an interchange, Havana. Currently it's an at-grade intersection. In 2050, with the volumes we're looking at, an at-grade intersection at Havana will not work. So grade separating that is key to the function of Lincoln Avenue. It's key to the function of the interchange. So this is a ramp to get up there going eastbound. And then, improvements getting north into Meridian, south, of course, into the Lone Tree City Center, and then working east. Now, one difference here between that you see from a normal diamond interchange is we're not connecting right back into Lincoln from Havana going eastbound. One of the things that we looked at was a connection that had a ramp that just went right back into Lincoln, or the idea of adding in this collector distributor, a CD road. We looked at both options, and pretty unanimously, pretty early on, we found out this was going to be the preferred way of doing it because it adds a ton of flexibility to movement in the interchange. It allows the developer down here for Lone Tree City Center to potentially develop land between Lincoln and the CD road, which is tremendously valuable and helps move them towards their successful conclusion of that development. And we can take this road and move it as far north or south as we want to. That is totally flexible, and as we get into the next phase of the project, we're going to look at exactly where that needs to be, working with our development partners. So if you're on Havana and you want to go east towards Parker, the CD road here gets you, you can head up to Zenith, or if you're up in Meridian, you can head east from higher up. So again, the goal here was how do we get people where they want to go most efficiently with 2050 traffic volumes? And this was the first alternative we looked at. All right, let's zoom back out here. Okay, second alternative that we looked at. This is a SPUI. This is a single point urban interchange. And what this does, it consolidates the two ramp terminals east and west of I-25 into a single large ramp terminal in the center. And then, of course, we have the great separated Havana. We still had the flyover because in 2050 traffic volumes, the consolidation of intersections here wasn't enough for traffic operations, so we had to add the flyover to it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this alternative. And the reason is when we dumped it into the traffic model and started running versions of the traffic model with 2050 volumes in it, it performed worse than the no build. So I'll say that again, it performed worse than doing nothing. And the reason was we're consolidating access to I-25 into one point. So currently today, if you're eastbound on Lincoln and you want to access northbound I-25, you got an access here through the Cloverleaf. Similarly, westbound Lincoln, you can access using the ramp here. This consolidates it into one ramp system on the north side. It simply could not handle the volume. And it broke down the operations of Lincoln Avenue all the way through the corridor. So we didn't spend a whole lot of resources on this one once we learned this news. It's a fatal flaw. And so it really came down to, for us, looking at alternative 1, which we had here, we just walked through, and alternative 3. And the idea with alternative 3 was, what if we took the flyover concept and instead of flying it all the way over and having it land on Lincoln, what if we added it to an intersection here on the east side? What would that do? Again, preserving the majority of the existing infrastructure at the interchange. Could we handle the volume at this intersection here? And what would it require us to do with other design elements as we move forward? Well, what we learned is if you're on northbound I-25 and you're taking the off-ramp to Lincoln and you want to go east, we couldn't separate that traffic enough from the intersection to be able to get them through efficiently. They get their own little flyover. And that dumps them again into the center of Lincoln Avenue. They can continue on as regional traffic. The advantage of the flyover that we saw in the first alternative was it took that regional traffic unimpeded and ran them through the corridor. In this alternative, they would stop at the intersection here. And we looked at traffic operations of this alternative exactly the same way we did alternative 1 to see if there was a benefit to this over the others. And so it performed well. It did all right. And we'll talk about kind of the comparison of 1 and 3 as we go forward. This also has the collector distributor road on the east side. Again, that was the preferred way of moving forward for all of our partners on the technical and leadership committee. So we ended up with 2 alternatives that could do the job. And the question then was, which one does it better? And we spent a lot of time talking about that because there's a number of different ways of looking at it. We looked at all the different evaluation criteria at the beginning. I'll go back to that real quick. Here at the bottom of the screen, we have those 5 bullets. Underneath those 5 bullets are about 25 other metrics that go along with measuring them. So we have plenty of information, plenty of data to go through, and making sure all of our partners understood that, had a chance to ask questions, really pushed the project team. What about this? What about that? What if you look at it this way? That was the best process I think I've been through on a project like this because it allows all of us to come out comfortable with the solution that we want to move forward with. So again, alternative 1, alternative 3 were kind of our comparisons. And again, here's the no action. I'm going to spend a quick second on no action simply to articulate that the no action in our project is not just doing nothing. Obviously, we have to add connections at Havana South and the Lone Tree City Center and at Zenith South and the Lone Tree City Center. Those don't exist today. But there's obviously a plan for development to the south, and so our no-build option includes those legs, tying into, obviously, the master plan that the developer has. In addition, this alternative includes a 3rd left turn lane from eastbound Lincoln to northbound Havana. That is on Douglas County's plan right now. That is something that they want to do in the near future, potentially regardless of what alternative move forward as an interim maybe. The idea is the 2 left turn lanes that exist today do not function today. So that alternative, that enhancement is going to be needed no matter what. So our no build includes a couple options that are on the plans right now, and that's what we've been comparing these alternatives against. Again, alternative 2 performed worse in 2050 than this alternative, and therefore was removed from further consideration. All right, recommendation is 1B. I got another slide that I'm going to show you where we get into some more of the details on that. But alternative 1B best addresses our purpose and need for the project. Dan threw up the slide about why we're here, what problems are we trying to solve. Alternative 1B solves those problems the best. It's not the only way to do it, but it does it the best. Specifically, best balancing regional mobility and local access. This has been a theme of ours since before we even had our first public meeting. How are we going to balance the folks that want to use this corridor and the interchange for regional movement versus those that want to use it for local access? And the alternative that we've developed and that the team's really pushed us on does that, the best of all the alternatives that we looked at. So we're pretty happy with that. The flyover at I-25, again, we're preserving majority of the existing infrastructure. Adding that flyover to the interchange really provides us the highest capacity to handle future volumes. That is huge for us. Being able to separate that regional movement through this stretch, get them in the left lane on Lincoln, allow them to go through the corridor unimpeded was huge in balancing and creating efficiency for those wanting to use the local access. And again, more conventional geometry, better meeting driver expectations, and easier to implement than alternative 3 that we were looking at before. And then the B is the CD road that I was talking about before. A was the option that has a traditional ramp that goes right back into Lincoln. B was the collector distributor road. That provided us an ability to avoid weaving issues on Lincoln in this area, which is a huge safety concern. So we're happy that we're able to do something that's a little safer for everybody. It does provide a full movement signalized intersection at Zenith. So today, we don't have that, but coming in the future, that was something that Coventry really was hoping that we could implement here for the Lone Tree City Center, and this allows us to do that, as well as the development potential between that road and Lincoln. So it really created flexibility for us and the ability to continue working with our partners as we go into preliminary design to make sure we're doing that the right way, putting that road in the right location, and meeting the needs of everybody and not just one or two. So on the right-hand side is a graphic we developed with our leadership team to kind of just illustrate where alternative 1 had the benefit over alternative 3. As you see, we didn't have anything on the right-hand side, which would have been more negative. Both of these alternatives, did things well enough to advance to this stage. Alternative 1 just does a few things, a few very important things better. And that's what we're here for, the best solution. And we are extremely confident in the process that led us here, the team that pushed us to get here, and are happy to be able to move forward with a recommendation for alternative 1B. This slide shows alternative 1B with the multimodal elements added to the graphic. So Dan showed earlier the TIP application that the city and county submitted to DRCOG that was just the mobility infrastructure of this. A great first phase. No matter what alternative advanced forward, we were going to do the mobility. And so we were confident to be able to apply for those funds through DRCOG. This is what it looks like with the recommended alternative to move forward. So I'll zoom in on a couple places here because it's pretty fun. So we're looking at how to navigate pedestrians across I-25 on Lincoln Avenue, right? You don't see a whole lot of folks doing that today for good reason, right? We don't have the infrastructure there yet to be able to do that comfortably, safely. So we're gonna focus on that. We're gonna focus on that at Lincoln, but we're also gonna focus to connecting off system, if you will. So we have a CDOT partners are here today, and they have a table in the back to talk about the Mobility Hub, the Lone Tree Mobility Hub. There's a partnership between the city and the state to put a mobility center here just south. So connecting folks to that from the Lincoln corridor is a huge part of this multimodal network. We really are trying to connect everybody through a network. You can get anywhere you want to go in your mode of choice, and you can do it safely, and you can do it comfortably. So on Lincoln, if you're one of those folks that likes to commute on their bike and is totally comfortable riding 6 inches from traffic, you can do that. If that is not you, and you want a more comfortable ride, it takes a couple minutes longer, but you want to enjoy it, you can get off that system and head down to the Lone Tree Mobility Hub, cross I-25 that way, and again, just a little more comfortable route for those folks that choose that. And of course, connecting this through to the new grade separated interchange at Havana, and all the way off to Zenith and connecting into the existing infrastructure to the east. So again, we're gonna say it all the time. Until the end of this job, we'll be saying this. The mobility and connectivity and access aspect of this project has been forefront, will continue to be forefront. And that's why the early action of applying for funding was all about the mobility and multimodal aspect of this job. Right. So what's next? That's kind of an awesome conversation to be having. For a while, we've been focusing on coming up with the best solution, and now that we believe that we're there, we can start looking ahead at what's next. We are not going to construction tomorrow, sorry to say. I know a lot of folks would like us to do that. There's a few different reasons why. We are not done making Alternative 1B the best alternative that it can be. We have a lot of work left to do. We're going to get into preliminary design. Mark DeVos and our design team, along with the engineers at the city and the county and other agencies, are chomping at the bit to get a hold of this thing and start designing it. Really finding out the horizontal and vertical geometry, where this is gonna go. So we're calling out design refinements, things that we wanna consider as we go into that preliminary design, as we continue to advance that and make sure that we are optimizing the efficiency of this alternative as we go. So we're not done. We're going to continue to make this the best alternative we can. While we're doing that, we're going to execute the NEPA process that Justin and Dan talked about earlier. This is where we take the alternative and we look at natural, socioeconomic, built environment impacts that this alternative could have. We look at ways to avoid and minimize those impacts, and we look at ways at mitigating those impacts if necessary. It's a really critical federal process that we must complete, as Justin said, in order to be, one, attractive for future funding when it comes to construction, and also make sure we're not doing anything that is going to adversely impact the environment or the folks in this area, because that's not what we want to do, right? We want to construct something, we want to build something that works for the traffic, and also avoids and minimizes as many impacts as possible. So this is our opportunity to do that. That will take place over the rest of this year and into early 2024. And so where we are here, Diamond, on the graphic here is today. We are recommending an alternative to move forward into that process. We'll start up NEPA and preliminary design, get into early 2024 with that. And then we are able to move into final design because the city and the county were able to acquire and obtain final design money last year. So we talked about that at the last project meeting. That is impressive and extremely welcome, because we don't have to pause. We can move forward with the momentum that we have and roll right into final design and take that next step in getting something built to help the traveling public here. So that is our goal for 24-25, and then we will be ready, pending funding, to start a phased implementation of this project in potentially 2026. So phasing, Dan talked earlier about multimodal being an early action item. We can get that infrastructure in. We'll know what the ultimate layout looks like, and we can start building according to that. But even taking alternative one and looking at ways to phase implementation of that, if we don't get all the money day one for construction, how can we take advantage of that? So in the preliminary design and NEPA phase we're about to embark on, we get a chance to look at a funding and a phasing plan in that process. So we'll get an idea of what the funding picture looks like, and we'll get an idea of how Alternative 1B can be phased in its implementation, and it can be. The question is, how can we break that up, and how can we take advantage of funding opportunities as they come? So a lot of exciting work left to do. Today is a huge milestone, but being able to move forward and continue looking at this alternative, we have a lot more big milestones to come. Public involvement will continue to stay important all the way through the life of this project. I can promise you that. We have a lot of different ways that folks can stay engaged in this project. You can attend public meetings like we're doing tonight. You can visit our website, advancinglincolnavenue.com. Everything will be there. The video from tonight will be there. We will post the boards that are up in the room here. There are multiple ways to access the project team through that website. You can leave comments on a form directly there. You can email us. You can call us. We want to hear from you. If you have thoughts, if you have questions, concerns, if you think it's the greatest thing ever and you want to tell us that, we're happy to hear it too. Whatever you're feeling, whatever you're thinking, we encourage you to engage with the project team because we're going to be here for a few more years. We're going to be pushing through the design and NEPA process, and we'll be reaching back out with more public meetings like this as well. Thank you, everybody. This is a really important moment for the project. Couldn't be more excited to be here. Thanks for coming tonight. Thanks to those who joined us online. We are going to start a Q&A process now that includes both the folks here in the room. Dan's going to walk around with a mic, and we're also going to allow those folks who put their questions into the Q&A on the online feature. We're going to have Anna Marie ask us a few questions that have come up from there as well. So for the moment, we can take a pause, and if anybody in the room has a question or would like to make a statement, Dan can get the microphone to you. So let's start there. Is there anybody here in the room that has a question? Right here on the left, Dan, up front.
This on? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
This is great. Thanks for getting all this information in front of us. This kind of engineer question.
Sure. We have some of those in the room.
We always look at, from my background, we always look at failure modes when you've got a new design.
Okay.
Have you looked at the impacts of, say, what if there's a crash here, what if there's a crash there? Have you done that yet, or is that something that happens in the next step?
Yes and yes. So we've done a little bit of that. In fact, Art Griffith from Douglas County encouraged us to look at a few things about risk and resiliency. Redundancy comes into that. He's got a 4Rs moniker for it that we can talk about later. But one of the really beneficial aspects of Alternative 1B was looking at the flyover ramp and saying, okay, well, what if there's an accident on the flyover ramp? What do we do? Well, the existing infrastructure southbound I-25 off coming to the signalized intersection remains. So if there is an accident on the flyover, we can close it, take care of that. People can still get to where they want to go. Is it going to be as efficient as it was? No, it's not designed for that, but they can still get there, right? And they can get there the way they get there today. So it's going to be familiar for a lot of folks that live in this area, that use this area a lot. We're also looking at part of the design refinements moving into the next stage, the ability to take this off-ramp, since in this alternative, if you want to get to Havana from I-25, you would come off, hit this signal, and work your way over. How can we enhance that off-ramp to increase resiliency and provide more efficiency for folks that want to get to Havana? As an example, it's a huge movement for us. In the AM, there are a tremendous amount of folks southbound I-25 getting north into Meridian especially, but as Lone Tree City Center develops to the south, you'll have it there as well. We are looking at ways to enhance that, get people in the proper lanes, if you will, as early as possible to allow them to get to where they want to go more efficiently. Doing all of that allows us to take a look at what risks may show up and what resiliency do we have to be able to handle those as they happen. So we've done a little bit of that now, and as we get into preliminary design and especially final design going forward, that will continue to be part of our process. And I'll just, Mark, was that pretty good thumbs up from Mark? All right. That's always a good thing when the engineer gives you the big thumbs up. So hopefully that answers your question. Yeah, excellent question. Excellent question. Anybody else in the room that has a question at the moment? Yes, sir, here in the red shirt.
We enjoyed your presentation last time, and we enjoyed it more this time. Good job.
Well, thank you.
Traffic on I-25 southbound, according to Alternative 1B, seems to be addressed with all eastbound traffic.
Correct.
So are you assuming that the westbound traffic remains constant through 2050? And if so, what was the percentages that you assumed eastbound, westbound, and here's the clinker, going on Park Meadows to Park Meadows Retail Center?
Yeah, westbound turning right at Park Meadows.
That's
Yep,
correct.
yep.
That's correct. And have you determined that that's not a problem?
I'll start with the last question. No, that is part of the conversation as we go along. So one of the things our project team did through the traffic modeling was analyze what splits do we have for people going different directions, and where we have high volume splits, how are we able to accommodate those for people in 2050? So I can tell you that at Havana, as you go I-20 or Lincoln at Havana, it's about a 50-50 split, people going eastbound and westbound, and it maintains that a large portion of the day. Now, there are a lot of folks that don't make it through there because they want to access Havana in the morning. So we have huge splits in the morning, people wanting to go southbound I-25, east on Lincoln to Havana, and they want to primarily go north into Meridian, but also south into Lone Tree City Center. So we have looked at those splits of traffic for Zenith, Havana, both east and west terminals of I-25, and over to Park Meadows. So understanding how many people want to go to these places, both in the AM peak and in the PM peak, is critical to making sure that we have developed an alternative that's going to accommodate everybody. So you can be assured that our team has looked at that, and we'll continue to look at it as we make design refinements going forward. Westbound traffic in 2050 does not remain constant from what you see today. It grows. There's more volume everywhere. So I'm not sure if that was exactly your question, but we are experiencing growth in every direction throughout the entire network. So making sure that we know those volumes and are accommodating those volumes is key. Getting to Park Meadows, one of the things we looked at was by removing the regional traffic, the high percentage of regional traffic here that want to head out east, having them not go through this signal here at the west intersection allows more capacity there. There's more room there to do what we want to do. So if we wanted in preliminary design to take a look at this right turn and enhance this for folks that are coming westbound, knowing that there's a high volume of folks that want to make that right turn, they want to go north on Park Meadows. There's also people on westbound Lincoln that want to do the same thing. A little bit of a weave today, right? I think a lot of folks have experienced that. We're not done looking at that. So we're at a very high conceptual level, and like I said, our engineering team are really chomping at the bit to go more detailed, and that's part of the look, is to really understand what can be done there to help that. We're not done optimizing this alternative. There's a lot more to come. So I don't know if anybody else had anything they wanted to add to that. I added what you were going to add. That's perfect. Okay. Good.
I think to add to his basic question is that the operations analysis that we did include all of Lincoln from Yosemite to Peoria, and then I-25 from County Line Road to Ridgegate.
Yeah, so Marine Paz de Arujo, everybody from our traffic team, so making sure that I'm not misstating anything. Very, very excellent point. So yes, all of these intersections are included in our network for traffic analysis, so we know all the way out to Yosemite and Peoria, as she mentioned, the network of where people are going and how they're accessing this area. Not everybody gets to Lincoln from I-25. Folks are coming from all over the place. Not everybody gets to Meridian from Lincoln. They can access from the north through Jamaica. We needed to know all of those things to make sure we weren't overbuilding or overcorrecting, and that we were understanding that folks have multiple ways of getting around. And so, yeah, Maureen, thank you so much. Perfect addition. Let's jump online. Anna Marie, you've been collecting questions and comments as we've been going along. Anything in the Q&A that is jumping out to you that we should answer today?
John, we don't have any questions in our Q&A just yet. There's still time. Maybe a question in the audience might spark someone, but if there are any other questions you want to move forward with in the room, you can go ahead.
Sounds good. Let's encourage those folks online to ask a question or make a comment if they have one. And Art Griffith would like to make a statement here from Douglas County. Yes, sir.
Yeah, John, could you go back to the SPUI that we eliminated? Because I think, so if we look at this alternative, this was an alternative that Douglas County thought we were going to move forward with in 2008 study. But you can see, and John quickly went over during the presentation, in this new configuration, you eliminate the eastbound to northbound loop ramp. And John had stated earlier that that's fatally flawed. And that is because there's so much east-west traffic going to and from further west of Lone Tree. So I just thought I'd add that.
Yeah, Art, thank you again. Yeah, being able to dive into this a little bit more, there just isn't enough capacity to handle that large movement of folks wanting to access I-25 from Lincoln going northbound. So consolidating two entrances into one just does not work here. And we looked at it. We looked at it a bunch of different ways, looked at different tweaks to the design that we could to see if we could make it work, and it just wasn't in the cards for this one. Other comments or questions from folks in the room? Okay, Anna Marie, this may be the last call for folks online. Did anybody chime in with a question while we were addressing the last one?
Okay, we have one.
Hey.
Any thoughts about mitigating traffic congestion northbound I-25 at Ridgegate and Lincoln during and after construction? Northbound can back up even to Castle Pines.
Yes, excellent point. I wondered if we would get this question today. So one thing you've noticed, hopefully, as we've kind of looked at the alternatives going forward is we are not making improvements to I-25 with this project. That is really important to understand. It's not that no more traffic is coming to I-25. There is. 2050 model shows that. So the question is excellent about how are we going to handle that? Well, CDOT and FHWA have current plans in action that address I-25. We are continuing to work with those agencies to make sure that nothing that we do here precludes any of those studies, anything that comes out of those studies from moving forward. If nothing were done on I-25 and we just move forward with alternative 1B, it's better. It's better than the no action. It's enhanced greatly if we can get some improvements to I-25. But that is outside the scope of this particular study, outside the jurisdiction of Lone Tree and Douglas County and the other locals in the area. Again, not that we won't be closely working with CDOT and FHWA as they advance their studies and look at implementing things on I-25. It's just not in the scope of this particular study. So we look forward to working with those partners. That's the big picture. As far as during construction, wonderful question. We are not there yet. As we get through preliminary design, as we understand potential phasing of construction, we will be able to come up with phasing plans that accommodate for movement during construction. That will come in the next few years as we continue to study those phases and what's possible here. You can trust that that will be a major part of the conversation as we move forward, especially in final design. Understanding that folks don't stop traveling when we go under construction. And we have to continue accommodating movement throughout. Dan.
John, just a little plug for our friends at the Colorado Department of Transportation. They're working for y'all really hard. These mobility hubs are to promote regional and statewide transit options through Bustang. So hopefully, rather than just driving by yourself and getting stuck in that traffic, you're in a really nice, comfortable bus with Wi-Fi, maybe even your bicycle, and you're avoiding all those frustrations. And you'll have great connectivity to RTD's light rail system right here in the heart of Lone Tree.
Yeah, great addition, Dan. Thank you. Again, as we talk about these enhancements, as we talk about mobility during construction, after construction, We are talking about all modes. We are talking about all users. And again, you're going to hear us say it all the time, but that's a huge part of this project. Anna Marie, any other questions online, or was that the only one tonight?
Nope, there's another one.
Right.
Meridian has just rebuilt the roadway on Meridian Boulevard near Havana. Will there be a road that crosses Lincoln from Meridian to the new Lone Tree Town Center?
Okay, so I believe what we're talking about is the new construction that just took place here at Havana and Meridian. That was a Douglas County project that we worked closely. They gave us the geometry of that design so we could include that as a baseline in our analysis. So everything we're doing here ties into that perfectly, if you will. So thank you to the county for allowing us to have that right from the start. And then as far as connecting from that location into Lone Tree City Center, the grade separation of Havana over Lincoln allows that to take place. Today, if we were to not grade separate it, you'd go to that single intersection that's there and you'd continue on south. Here, because of the volumes, we have a grade separated. Havana will go over Lincoln in this area and continue south into Lone Tree City Center. So absolutely 100% you can do that at Havana. You can also do that at Zenith, although it's a little harder to navigate on the north side. And then you have roads to the east as well at Oswego and Peoria that get you north and south too. So a lot of options here, but most definitely at Havana, we can get folks north-south across Lincoln. All right. Was that the last question, Anna Marie, or did another one pop up? Are we getting people's thoughts moving?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from folks in the room? Okay, that's going to conclude the presentation and Q&A. The project team will be around here in the room until we answer all your questions here for everybody, and then we can get you on your way for your evening. So thank you again. It really, truly takes an amazing group of people from all different angles to make something like this happen and get to the point where we have a solution we can all support and stand behind. And I just really thank the entire team, all of the agencies, all of our stakeholder partners for engaging with us, for pushing us, for making us think outside the box and coming up with this recommendation. So the next time you see us, we will be in the NEPA and preliminary design process, and we will have another public meeting when we have more news to share. Thank you all so much. Have a good night.